Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, Masa al-Khair. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. I'm Nabil al-Bashiri, Senior Faculty Development and Digital Learning Support Specialist. On behalf of the Office for Digital Learning and Online Education at Qatar University, I'm delighted to welcome you to this special webinar, and I would like to thank you for being here with us today. Today's webinar is special because it marks the launch of our webinar series on digital learning in the age of artificial intelligence. This initiative comes at a time of rapid change in higher education, especially with the rise of generative AI, which is transforming and redefining how we teach and how students learn. At Qatar University, we believe this shift invites us to rethink how we design, deliver, and assess our courses while maintaining academic rigor and meaningful human connection. This series aims to support that reflection by offering a space for faculty and guest speakers to share insights, practical experiences, and innovative ideas. Starting the coming fall semester, we'll be hosting more of these webinars under this theme. If you or someone you know would like to present, please connect with your college's DLOE ambassador. We work closely with those champions in each college. With that, let's now turn our attention to today's topic and introduce our guest speaker. Ensuring high-quality, blended online and digitally enriched courses is a top priority at Qatar University. That's why we have partnered with Quality Matters, a global leader in setting standards and providing training for effective digital course design. Through this collaboration, many of our faculty have completed the Applying the Quality Matter rubric workshop and are applying Quality Matters standards to improve the quality and consistency of their courses. Today's speaker comes to us from Quality Matters. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Racheal Brooks. Dr. Brooks is a seasoned higher education administrator, educator, and consultant with over 16 years of experience. She serves as a Director of Quality Assurance Implementation Solutions at Quality Matters, where she leads consulting efforts and supports institutions committed to online quality assurance. She previously led the Office of E-Learning at North Carolina Central University and has been deeply involved with the Quality Matter community across institutions and systems. Her leadership has helped shape effective digital teaching practices and faculty learning communities. Dr. Brooks has also taught language and research methods in both online and blended formats. Her research spans online teaching, student success, inclusive design, and digital accessibility. She holds a PhD in educational research and policy analysis, along with advanced degrees in Spanish language and literature. We are honored to have her with us to open this series of webinars. Dr. Brooks, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that warm welcome, Dr. Al-Bashiri. It is an absolute pleasure to be joining you all today. I would like to extend special thanks to our colleagues in the Office of Digital and Online Learning at Qatar University. Thank you for the invitation. It is a privilege to be able to kick off this webinar series on digital learning in the age of artificial intelligence. And I'm excited for us to begin the conversation with the topic of bridging tradition and technology and the various ways in which we can promote innovation and impact through blended and online learning. Just very briefly, I'd like to share some basic information about Quality Matters, let you know a little bit about who we are. This is an introduction for some, a reintroduction for many, but Quality Matters is the global organization leading quality assurance in online and innovative digital teaching and learning environments. We began in 2003 with faculty and institutions who were really trying to decide and determine what are those quality standards in online design. We began very humble beginnings as a nonprofit and built ourselves into this community of over 90,000 individual members worldwide. And we are centered on the principles of collaboration, collegiality, continuous improvement, and research. As I had mentioned, Quality Matters is the international gold standard for online quality, with over 1,300 member institutions in all 50 states in the United States of America, as well as over 30 countries. We together as a community have been able to certify over 15,000 courses, and we have a community of more than 3,500 certified QM peer reviewers. There are a variety of options and services that are available through Quality Matters for individuals, schools, publishers, as well as organizations and businesses. And our community helps to support our colleagues throughout K-12 institutions in higher education and beyond. I'd like to highlight just some key points of our mission, which is promoting and improving the quality of online education and student learning nationally and internationally. We do so by developing current research-supported best practices and quality standards, as well as an evaluation or various evaluations and tools that can be used to evaluate the quality of online learning. We emphasize the recognition for expertise in online education quality assurance as well as evaluation. And we work to foster a culture of continuous improvement by embedding QM standards and processes into various organizational plans to help our community members improve quality of online education. We also provide professional development in the use of rubrics, as Dr. Al-Bashir had shared, related to trainings such as the Applying the QM rubric and others, as well as tools and practices to help improve the quality of online education. And we also provide peer review and certification of quality in online education. So we do this work to help elevate and scale quality in online design and teaching, support online instructors through results-focused professional development. And we also work to help you, our community members, ensure that your online learners receive a quality experience. Now, with that, I'd like to introduce just a very quick guide for our conversation today. And I encourage you to think, as you are engaged in the work of transitioning from and connecting that bridge between tradition and technology, the various ways in which we as an organization may be able to support you and the tools and resources that are available to assist you as you are building that bridge. We're going to start out by talking about why blended and online learning matter now, and then transition into discussing the various ways in which we can ensure quality and rigor in digital teaching. We're then going to explore how to enhance design, feedback, and engagement through the use of artificial intelligence. And then we're going to wrap up our conversation by discussing various ways in which we can lead this global change. What are practical steps in which we can emphasize the use of best practices and quality education, and how can we adapt this work to fit our local contexts? So let's start our discussion with why blended and online learning matter now. We know that there is an evolving role that traditional institutions play. Many of them are trusted institutions for academic excellence and pride themselves on the role that they play as it relates to providing that quality education. But we also know that our students' expectations are changing. They are growing in their digital literacy, as well as their expectations around what education looks like in light of changes with technology that are happening now throughout the world. Global higher education is also adapting to various ways in which they can provide education through different models and modalities. And so as we are shifting on this global scene, we want to consider as institutions, what does that look like? And what is the role that we want to play in this shift? Digital learning, as we know, enhances access, flexibility, and engagement for our learners. And even if we are not engaged in fully online learning, incorporating what we refer to as blended learning, which we're going to discuss in just a moment, is a great way to enrich face-to-face teaching. But it's important to keep in mind that although it enriches face-to-face instruction, the goal is not to replace it. One of the reasons why we want to consider as institutions these best practices and the trends that are happening and the shifts that are happening in the educational space is because for institutions to remain relevant and competitive, it is important to keep a pulse on these shifts and decide how institutions are going to respond. Now, before we get deeper into our conversation, let's talk a bit about what blended learning is. Blended learning is a purposeful combination of both face to face instruction as well as online instruction. So it's a healthy mix of the two. And the point is to maximize the benefits of both modalities. We know that there are certain benefits that are associated with face to face instruction as well as online instruction. And so we are able to really complement each of those modalities by effectively blending them together. Some common formats that you may be familiar with as it relates to blended learning is, let's say, flipped classrooms, there may be hybrid courses, or even the incorporation of modular design. Now, I'm going to share a bit with you. I know Dr. Al-Bashari had shared a little bit earlier about my role with Quality Matters, as well as my role in teaching. And when I first started out in higher education as a face-to-face instructor of Spanish, I found that we spent a lot of time in class going over content or discussing content or introducing content to learners, as opposed to really being able to maximize that time and engage in practical application of the material that we were learning. So that was my introduction to the blended learning space, where I was able to flip my classroom, so to speak, and was able to use the online environment to complement what we were doing in the classroom. It allowed us to break down those four walls of the physical classroom and permitted me to introduce content such as readings or videos, discussions, different conversations, even podcasts to my learners before they came to class so that we would be able to discuss problem areas, areas of interest that they may have encountered, as well as to explore more deeply those practical applications of the material, as opposed to the classroom space being solely used for the introduction of material. We also know that blended learning provides flexibility for our students and allows us to also retain that personal interaction space. And it emphasizes intentional instructional design. For those of you who are already engaged in online or especially blended learning, you know that there are certain considerations that must be taken into account for blended learning to be successful. And so it does require an amount of forethought that needs to occur in collaboration with our different units on our campuses to help us to think intentionally about the needs of our learners. And for that reason, it's important to keep in mind that blended learning is not simply taking face-to-face content and placing it into an online platform. We have to be mindful of the needs of our learners as they're engaging in that online space. So, what are some reasons why we would want to consider blended or online learning? Well, blended and online learning as modalities introduced to institutions allows them to be able to reach more students. It's a wonderful way of accessing non-traditional students or students who may be geographically dispersed. It also enhances student engagement and interactivity. As I shared, I use the blended space, and now as a strictly online instructor, it gives me the opportunities to engage my learners in ways and introduce them even to individuals, guest speakers, who may not have previously been accessible to them in engaging in simply the face-to-face environment. It also supports self-paced learning and personalization and gives us the opportunity to provide additional information, maybe supplemental resources, videos, and explanations to our learners that we may not have ample time to do in the face-to-face environment. It encourages reflective and collaborative learning. And it helps to prepare students for the digital work environments in which they can expect to engage once they complete their time with us in their educational programs. We know that our learners are getting ready to go into a world that is constantly changing and growing. It is incredibly dynamic, and there are expectations from future employers, or if they decide to be self-employed and provide support and assistance to a broad customer base. There is an expectation that there are certain digital literacy skills that our learners have. So we can use this time while they are engaged with us at our institutions to build upon those skills, to help them develop the skills and receive feedback from experts in those spaces. And we know that blended and online learning also enables flexible delivery during disruptions. This is something that we as a global community recently experienced with the global health crisis related to the COVID-19 pandemic. But it's also beneficial to support continued instruction when there are instances of natural disasters that may occur or other life circumstances that our learners may encounter. Utilizing blended and online learning helps us to bridge that gap and to ensure that our learners can continue with instruction with as much limitation to that disruption as possible. So, as we engage in this blended and online learning space, an important consideration for institutions to take into account are the concerns and hesitancy that many faculty members may feel. Again, I will be glad to share my perspective as much as I've always been very excited about the use of technology. As a newer instructor at that time, and then as I was growing into the role that I had, I was also hesitant about engaging in the online space. I wanted to ensure that the level of intentionality that I was using in the face-to-face environment, I could also incorporate in the online space. I took pride in the way in which I was instructing my students and the education that I was providing to them, as I'm sure many of you do. And so in transitioning into the online space or engaging in blended learning, it's important to think about what are some of the common concerns that faculty may experience, or even faculty developers and instructional design professionals. Some of these common concerns may be related to reduced control, lack of familiarity with various tools, or lack of training that may be available. And so as institutions, it is critical that we acknowledge these very valid challenges and discomforts that faculty and our other instructional personnel may have. And we follow up those challenges and that acknowledgement with reassurance that blended learning and the engagement in the online learning space can help to build on the existing strengths of face-to-face instruction. We want to emphasize incremental change. We are not here to solve all of the problems. And in doing so, even as we set realistic and attainable goals, we also want to assign and align appropriate timelines to help us meet those goals. We do not have to come up and start out from the very beginning in blended and online learning and think that we're going to, in the very next term or the very next academic year, have transitioned as institutions to fully online and engaged experiences for our learners. It's important to not only gradually enter into the space so that the transition can be an easier one for faculty, for staff, and for students, but also because that gradual transition provides us the opportunity to reflect and assess how we are engaging in these spaces and to identify ways in which we can strengthen the work that we're doing to support student success. Speaking of success, it's also important for us to spotlight faculty success stories, as well as provide chances for our colleagues to engage in peer-led workshops where they are showcasing the work that they are doing. We know that many of our colleagues are already enthusiasts in online learning and blended learning. And so we want to lean into that expertise of our fellow practitioners and to be able to identify, even across disciplines, those best practices that can be applied to the work that we are doing. Think of ways that you can also provide mentorship and continuous support. The role of faculty members, of course designers, of administrators in these spaces is a work that is continuous. There are always opportunities to learn, grow, and improve because just as our institutions and our faculty and our staff are dynamic, so are our students, and their needs are changing, which is a wonderful opportunity to explore ways in which we can continue to enhance the work that is being done. So let's transition now and discuss what are some ways in which we can ensure quality and rigor in digital teaching. This is one of those areas that I think introduces a common concern that many faculty may have as they are being asked or they're considering that exploration into the online or blended space. And that is the work that we do in face-to-face instruction is high quality, and we are holding ourselves accountable for the rigor that is present in our face-to-face courses. How can we possibly do that in the online and blended space? Well, some of the ways in which we can approach that is by using some best practices that the research has already set out. Of course, I must share that there is a wonderful tool available to you through the Quality Matters Higher Education Rubric 7th edition, which breaks down a variety of best practices across different, what we refer to as general standards that introduce concepts of beginning and getting our students acclimated to our courses, the critical components associated with the alignment of elements within our courses to support student success, as well as considerations around supporting our learners and promoting accessibility and usability. I also encourage you to check out some information that is shared through a hallmark work as it relates to quality in education, and that's from Chickering and Ganson, related to the 7 principles for good practice in undergraduate education, which is also a helpful tool as you consider the work that you are doing in graduate education. So let's take a look at some of these best practices that come from what the research says. One of the ways that we can promote rigor and high quality educational experiences in online and blended learning relates to providing clear learning outcomes aligned with various assessments that are incorporated in the course. We want to be sure that we are clarifying our expectations for what learners will be able to do upon successfully completing the courses and the various modules within the courses in ways in which they will understand what is being communicated to them and they have a clear idea of what they are going to be able to do and the skills that they are going to acquire through their matriculation in those courses. We can provide structured weekly modules with meaningful activities that allow learners to practice the skills that are articulated in those objectives. We want to offer frequent, varied opportunities for interaction, making sure that students are engaged in active learning. Think of also ways in which we can utilize multimedia to support different learning styles and preferences. Think of how within your course you are engaging learners in various activities or in which you are assessing them, ensuring that however you are choosing to assess and have your students interact aligns with the objectives of the course. We also want to encourage regular and substantive instructor presence, promoting that interaction between us as instructors and our learners. And we also want to verify that we are incorporating practices that are accessible and inclusive within the design and eventual delivery of our courses. Now, as it relates to academic rigor, I do want to share some key points to consider. And one of them is that academic rigor is not exclusive to a singular modality. Academic rigor, just as it is present in face-to-face instruction, can also be present in blended and online learning. We can promote rigor by incorporating authentic assessments such as case studies, applied projects, team activities, or consider ways in which your learners are going to be engaged beyond their educational experience with you. How are they going to be interacting? And what are the various activities they can expect to perform in their future careers? How can you take those future activities that they will be doing and incorporate them into ways in which you can authentically assess your learners in the course? Think of ways in which you can also scaffold complex tasks or assignments. Rather than reserving a singular, large, summative project at the end of a course, break it down into smaller, attainable components. In a research course that I teach, I have my students develop, depending on the term, either a research proposal, or I have them develop a complete IRB application that includes not only the description of the study, but also components that would be incorporated in the exhibits. So the flyers, the interview protocols, the surveys that they would incorporate. Rather than asking my students at the end of the term to submit that project, I think about the various skills that they need to have and the understanding that they need to have to be able to put something like that together. So throughout the term, there are smaller, scaffolded, incremental projects that are available for students to complete, in which I am able to provide them feedback, support, guidance, and sometimes redirection if they happen to veer off course. So consider, what are you incorporating in your course? And are there ways to provide incremental opportunities to offer feedback for your learners to continue in their trajectory of success? We want to maintain high expectations and provide our learners with clear rubrics that let them know how they will be assessed in the course and as they are completing the various activities and assessments within the course. Also, think of ways in which we can incorporate peer review and discussion to help deepen learning and offer that rich, timely feedback for our learners. So I'd like to share with you another example of a possible blended course. So let's say that we have a business ethics course that is now transitioning from having been offered in a face-to-face environment to being offered in a hybrid delivery or that blended environment. This type of blended course can now incorporate weekly in-person discussions as well as include an online case analysis, which can then inform the discussions that will happen in subsequent weeks. There could be an inclusion of digital simulations that are used to help explore ethical dilemmas. This allows learners independently to engage on their device the various considerations that are associated with ethical dilemmas in business ethics, and then to be able to bring their experience back to that in-person conversation that happens in the face-to-face environment. There may also be the inclusion of asynchronous debates that happen via the learning management system forums. And you could even incorporate, for example, a final applied project that could be presented live, either virtually or in the face-to-face environment, or it could be recorded and then displayed in the face-to-face environment where peers can provide an assessment of the final project that was presented. You can also incorporate regular check-ins and formative feedback throughout the term to support learners as they work toward achieving the objectives of the course. Now, as exciting as blended and online learning can be, it's important to keep in mind our faculty roles, the roles that we have in supporting our learners in this experience. We have to shift from our focus of being content deliverers to now being learning facilitators. We are their coaches and their guides along the way. We want to place more of an emphasis on offering feedback, guidance, and presence. Particularly as you are engaged in online learning, it's important to think about what are the ways and the considerations that you took into account as a face-to-face instructor in providing that support and that instructor presence for your learners. The need of our learners to have the presence of their instructors doesn't go away just because they're engaging in blended and online learning. And perhaps it has even increased. We want them to know that we are present, we are there to support them, and that they have a way of accessing us when they need assistance, or sometimes when they don't even need, or they don't know that they need assistance. We want to co-create learning experiences with our students. Invite them to be co-owners of that learning experience, to voice their concerns and their ideas, and to allow that to help shape the trajectory of the work that is being done. Think of ways in which you can leverage digital tools for efficiency and insight. And not only can they help in the creation of courses, but also in the delivery of courses. How might various digital tools support with different administrative tasks so you can free up time to assist your students, provide mentorship and tutoring? We want to actively build community and trust online. Address the concerns, acknowledge the fears, and then work together to find viable solutions. And as instructors, we want to model what it means to embrace lifelong learning. This is our goal and our hope for our students, so we in turn want to make sure that we are doing the same. So let's take a break for a moment, and I invite Dr. Al-Bashiri to share with me if there are any questions that have come up in the chat. And if not, I do encourage you, please share with me, what are some of your hopes and concerns about online and blended learning? And where do you see the greatest opportunities for digital teaching at your institution?
So Dr. Aisha is asking what the practical strategies for integrating multimedia that both support different learning preferences and align with the course goals without overwhelming the learners are. What are these practical strategies for integrating multimedia that both support different learning preferences and align with the course goals without overwhelming the learners?
That is a wonderful question, and thank you for that. I'll be glad to share recommendations from strategies that I use in my own course and also in my previous role as director of e-learning, some best practices that I've seen colleagues use. So you bring up an excellent point. Yes, we want to ensure that whatever multimedia, or what we would often refer to as instructional materials, have an instructional purpose, and that is to meet those objectives of the course. So one of the first things that we need to do is to evaluate the alignment between whatever tool we may be using, whatever multimedia we choose to incorporate, and the course goals. Do they help our students meet the goals? Are they relevant and provide the content that our learners need? Now, another practice that I like to incorporate is to ask my students at the very beginning of the course. I ask them questions such as, in what ways do they learn best? Usually it's during an introductory discussion forum. And then in my courses that I teach asynchronously, so we have no live required sessions, I do invite my students to join an optional live session. So they are not penalized if they are not able to attend. But again, this is uniquely for a course where there are no required class meetings that happen in a live format. But at that time, what I like to do is to get to know my learners a little bit better. And so I'll ask them, what are the ways in which they feel they learn best? And often they will share those preferences with you. Some learners will say, well, I learn better when I have an opportunity to be more hands-on, or, I can read the text, but I need to watch a video to help it solidify the information for me. Some prefer to listen to podcasts, for example, or audio recordings. And so what I often do is I will take that information and I like to customize it for that given term, but I'll also include what I've learned in future terms in which I'm delivering the courses. And this is something that I've seen a lot of colleagues do. It is helpful to share with your students when there are materials in which they are expected to engage. So for example, you may have multimedia such as videos that you have your students that you want them to watch. And so communicate to them that there is the expectation that this is a required resource. This is something that you need to watch, or something that you need to read, for example. But another strategy that you can use is by embedding quiz questions. There are tools that are available that allow you to have students interact with the multimedia. But as you are deciding what to include, it's important to consider the various ways in which students may want to take in information, whether that be through reading or listening, as well as how they choose to apply that information. So as my students are reading the different material or they're watching videos, I also have them create what I call concept maps. They can hand draw them. They can use different tools that I've vetted online to help them create the concept maps and demonstrate their connection of the information. But I also like to give my students choice. So there are times where I will present the information in either text via articles or a textbook chapter, but I may also supplement it with optional videos that they can watch that I've found that helps to solidify that information. So you want to make sure that you are doing this, and I have to share that I want to advocate for you as faculty as well. You do not have to incorporate everything. But as you are learning more about your students and learning about their preferences, it's helpful to provide them a variety of instructional materials, a variety of multimedia, but making sure that whatever you include meets the objectives or supports the achievement of those objectives of the course. And then giving your learners the chance to choose how they want to engage with that material.
I will now ask the question raised by Dr. Khalid al-Shahari. Dr. Khalid is coming from the translation education. He's a professor at the Department of the Linguistic Department, and he's majored in translation. He's appreciating the academic rigor that we can establish in the online space, but he's asking how do we balance academic rigor with academic integrity in the era of AI?
That is a wonderful question, and I will share just briefly, but I'm excited for that question because we actually address that in the next few slides as we transition into our next session regarding the use of AI, promoting academic rigor and providing those high quality experiences. So there, I will introduce it by sharing that there are a number of ways that we can do that. And we are going to discuss specifically best practices and strategies that you can use. This information is going to be made available after the session. I'm going to share the link, and there are a number of resources and tools, as well as, although this is, there will be a list of tools and recommendations for using the tools to do exactly that, promoting academic rigor, but also some strategies for ensuring academic integrity. There will be some direct link to those tools, or some direct links to those tools that are a sample, but I do have to share that they are not, they're not an endorsement by Quality Matters. But I look forward to sharing that information with you. And at the end, if you have another question along those lines, please feel free to address that. But I hope the next set of slides that we cover will address that question for you.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Well, then let's continue on and discuss one of the questions that was just raised around how do we promote that academic rigor, academic integrity through the use of AI. And we're going to do so focusing on how we enhance design, feedback, and engagement. I want to briefly share with you just a quick snapshot of the evolution of artificial intelligence in online learning. It started out really with automating tasks like grading and potentially plagiarism detection, and progressed more so to using chatbots and smart scheduling. Now we often use artificial intelligence for adaptive learning and predictive analysis. We may use adaptive learning, for example, in a number of our publisher websites where students will go and complete activities and receive automated feedback. Or it may also be associated with various mastery trainings and opportunities for students to demonstrate their understanding of skills while modifying the problems that are presented to them based on how they are performing to help students build and grow from where they are. We also know that AI has been used as it relates to natural language processing and supporting that context-based student feedback. It is able to provide feedback to students in such a way that it mimics how they would engage in normal language. And so it's a wonderful way to offer feedback to students that feels personalized and customized to their needs. Generative AI now also enables us to dynamically create course content, which is aligned to student performance. So here are some areas that I would like for you to consider as it relates to incorporating AI in teaching. We might use it with course design. So AI can help allow us to scaffold our assignments or those bigger projects. Just as earlier I had shared, perhaps there's a project you can break down into more attainable or incremental pieces. You can utilize AI, provide it details related to the project, and then ask, how can this be broken down over the period of 16 weeks to prepare students for completing that final project? It can be used to help develop measurable objectives or even to create quiz banks. We can use it for instruction through the use of adaptive tools or providing real-time student feedback. We can also use it for assessment to support us in creating rubrics that we would use to evaluate learner performance on different activities. We can use it for providing feedback and responsibly, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. It could also be helpful in detecting plagiarism. We can also use AI to provide support, for example, through the use of chatbots in advising or even in academic coaching. So on this slide, I'd like for us to focus very briefly on utilizing artificial intelligence for both feedback and assessment, as well as with student engagement. As it relates to providing feedback and assessing our learners, we can use artificial intelligence to help automate feedback on those low stakes quizzes and writing assignments. It's a wonderful way to affirm to students that, yes, you did get that right, or you seem to understand this information, or to provide briefly additional context as to why their response may have been incorrect, and to help guide them into making the correct choices. It can provide real-time language assistance for multilingual learners, particularly learners who may have difficulty understanding certain concepts or phrases. AI can help break it down in their native language in such ways that explains the information to them so that it is easier to understand. It also can provide support as it relates to peer feedback moderation. And it helps students as they are making revisions and continuously improving not only their work, but also their process through engaging and matriculating through their academic programs. And it can offer scalable support for larger classes, which is increasingly becoming a problem, as a good problem. But as online learning is growing in its popularity, this is a wonderful way for instructors to be able to provide high quality, personalized feedback to larger communities of students. With regard to student engagement, we can use chatbots for 24/7 support or to answer frequently asked questions. This is a great tool, especially when the understanding is, I hope the understanding is, you are not expected to respond to student questions and queries all hours of every day. And so utilizing artificial intelligence is a great way to supplement the support that you are already providing. It can help to provide personalized learning pathways for our students based on their progress. And we can even use it to create gamified learning environments to help promote student motivation. We can use AI-enhanced discussion prompts or simulations to support students in developing that deeper understanding of the content. as well as create adaptive content recommendations and encourage autonomy and exploration among our learners. Now, I'm not going to go through each of the components of this chart, keeping in mind our time, and then also for us to be able to answer some questions at the end of our session. But I'd like to offer some recommendations as it relates to practical strategies for AI use in online learning. Now, you'll notice that each of these are also supplemented by the aligned Quality Matters rubric, Higher Education Rubric 7th edition standards, as well as consulting services that we offer and professional development provided through Quality Matters. But there are a number of strategies and best practices that can be used as it relates to design. For example, again, starting with those measurable objectives and aligning our content accordingly. AI can help identify where instances of alignment as well as possible misalignment may exist in our courses. And we can also use it to help us generate multimodal content. So thinking of content delivered in those various formats. Going back to the question that was asked by our colleague earlier regarding multimedia, and how do we come up with ideas related to the use of multimedia to support various learning preferences? You can use AI, especially when you have a better understanding of those learning preferences that exist within a given class of students. We also want to think about ways in which we can encourage ethical delivery of artificial intelligence. One of those ways is by communicating AI use in our syllabi and orientations. We always want to be transparent with our students regarding how AI is used. Not only do we want to model that for our learners, but we expect that of them. So it's important for us to communicate the clarity around AI use. Another point that I would like to highlight especially is balancing that automated feedback with instructor presence. Incorporating AI does not relinquish us from our responsibility of maintaining that instructor presence in our courses. And as it relates to institutional actions, I'd like to bring your attention to two of them. One being providing faculty development on AI literacy and ethics. And I'll share later in our session about some resources that are available to you right now through Quality Matters that can support your institutions in providing that professional development for your faculty. Creating cross-functional teams to promote ethical oversight. It's important to garner the support of those on your campus who are already experts in policy, who may be experts in the use of AI, and others who may be experts because they're enthusiasts and have already tried out a number of tools and resources through artificial intelligence and can provide that practical expertise. I'd like to share with you here some links to a variety of tools that can be used to help promote engaging and inclusive courses through the use of artificial intelligence. Some of these tools can help promote brainstorming and creating lesson plans that are aligned to quality standards. It can help you generate accessible content and even presentation-ready learning modules and content. You can use tools such as Data Robot or ConsentKit to promote data privacy and transparent AI decision-making, as well as tools like ChatGPT and Claude to help draft objectives, rubrics, and outlines, and even design course visuals using AI suggestions. Some other tools that are available help to generate avatar-based videos that you can use for lectures that include captions as well. You can use Khanmigo through Khan Academy, which is an AI coach for guided student practice. You can use tools such as Edpuzzle with AI or H5P interactive content tool to enhance videos with automated questions and feedback. You can promote fairness and reduce bias in online learning through a variety of AI tools. And you can even build gamified quizzes from lessons that you can incorporate in your instruction, whether it be online, blended, or even in your face-to-face classroom. Now, we've spoken briefly about the ethical use of AI in teaching, and I would like to really speak on this topic a little bit deeper. There are some considerations that we certainly want to keep in mind as we are considering how we are introducing artificial intelligence not only into our practice for design and the administration of courses, but also the delivery of courses. So as I had mentioned earlier, we really want to maintain that transparency and communicate to our students when and how AI is being used. We should also make sure that we are working to avoid bias and the promotion of misinformation through AI tools. And that's where that human presence is so important. AI has a tendency sometimes of creating what are called hallucinations, where information is generated and presented as if it is true. But we, as the subject matter experts, should provide that oversight to verify what is being generated is actually factual information. We also want to be intentional about protecting student data and privacy. And remember that artificial intelligence is meant to be a complement to the work that we are doing and not a crutch. We also want to promote digital literacy and academic integrity through the use of AI. Communicate your expectations at the course level, as well as be mindful of and follow any institutional policies around the use of artificial intelligence. If you are unaware, speak to your various units on campus that may address that. Talk to your leadership and find out. Many institutions are in the process of creating those institutional policies. And often those committees or those task forces are open to participation from a variety of individuals. So stay informed and remain critically reflective as you are incorporating artificial intelligence. We're going to end our conversation by discussing also leading the change. What are those practical steps for local adaptation of online and blended learning? One of the key components is going to be professional development. We want to encourage peer-led communities of practice for those individuals who are either currently engaged in online and blended learning, faculty members who are in the process of getting engaged, and those who may not yet be doing so, but are interested in learning more. Think of how your institution may be able to provide just-in-time modular training sessions or mentorship for blended and online course development. Again, we want to spotlight those success stories. So consider ways in which you can showcase faculty successes at different events or digital pedagogy fairs. Encourage recognition for innovation and experimentation with online and blended learning. And make sure that you are also, as an institution, providing support through your various centers for teaching and learning. Remember that engagement in online and blended learning requires institutional culture change. You want to build buy-in gradually with those who may be excited about it, and they may be those early adopters, and align your digital learning initiatives with your strategic priorities. Gather and share student feedback and success stories. We're doing this to support our learners. So what better way to identify their needs than to ask them? And we also want to celebrate the small wins. Again, this is meant to be incremental change. And so as you are meeting various strategic goals, highlight and celebrate that work. Provide time and incentives at the institutional level for the work that goes into redesigning face-to-face courses to be offered in blended and online environments. And remember that leadership must model this commitment to innovate. As it relates to adapting to your local context, you want to make sure that you are respecting your institutional mission as well as your cultural values. And start with that foundation of faculty conversations. Your faculty members are your subject matter experts, not only in their disciplines, but also in the act of instruction. And so lean into their expertise as you are deciding how to go about participating in this space. Align what you are doing in online and blended learning with your students' needs and the technological realities of your institution and your students' context. You want to make sure that you're using these blended models to ease the transition. If you do not have to, you may not want to go directly from face-to-face instruction to solely online instruction. Consider ways in which you can incorporate blended education into the work that you are doing and to the modalities that you are providing to your learners. Focus on quality and not the quantity of digital tools. Again, they should align with the achievement of the objectives of your courses and meet the needs of your institutional infrastructure and your students. It is not a matter of how many tools you use, but the quality of those tools and the quality of their integration. And emphasize relevance to your learners' professional goals. The goals of each of these institutions is to ensure that you are graduating students who are prepared to engage in the global environment, this dynamic global environment. So find out what they are to encounter and consider how you can incorporate that into the work that you are doing. Some key takeaways that I would like to leave you with are that blended and online learning can help deepen student learning, and that academic rigor thrives with thoughtful design. This must be purposeful, and we must ensure that we are thinking intentionally about how to support learners. AI can enhance, not replace, meaningful teaching. And so consider how you are clarifying that distinction and providing support to your faculty and to your students along the way. Change begins with mindset, not with technology. We should not be driven because of the newest tool that is available, but because we want to see institutional change to support our learners. Faculty play a central role in innovation, but also leaders are the ones those administrations should support. And they should do so by leading with vision. So I leave you with some resources and tools that are available to you through Quality Matters. This summer, we have an AI-powered learning summer camp that is available to you, and I'll make sure that these links are also provided to our colleagues so that you can register, as well as an AI white paper that was recently released regarding strategies for personalized, engaging, and inclusive online design. And there are a variety of QM professional development that you can use, as well as consulting to kick off best practices in your online learning at your institution, as well as how to design your hybrid online, as well as improving your online courses. And so with that, I thank you so much, and I turn this back over to our hosts for any remaining questions there may be.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks, for these insights and practical strategies that you have shared with us. Yes, we do have a number of questions. We are a bit over time, so I hope the audience stays with us a little bit, because I'm sure these questions will add depth to such webinars. I'll go over some questions. This is Aisha thanking you for your previous response to her question. Nof was asking about if you could share or name a few AI tools, which I think you already did. We've got Asan Ghani. He was talking about balancing, covering content versus facilitating the learning, whether in the online space or in the face-to-face context. He's saying that there is much to cover, and this might sacrifice our facilitation of effective learning. Any perspective on balancing content coverage versus facilitating effective learning?
Absolutely. No, and that's a wonderful question. I'd like to go back to an example that I had shared a little bit earlier around. That was a challenge that I also faced when I originally was teaching face-to-face, and now even teaching online. You want to make sure that, especially if there's a certain amount of content that needs to be covered or various topics that need to be addressed, yes, we do want to plan for that. But that's where that intentional design comes into play. So thinking about what needs to be provided to learners, what information needs to be provided, but also what is the learning experience? How are you crafting that learning experience? So it may be that if you are restricted to a certain amount of time, either in a blended space, or let's say that you have synchronous live sessions where you are meeting with your learners, and you want to ensure that you are not necessarily utilizing all of that time to cover content or to introduce content, This would be a wonderful way to not only provide readings in advance or videos, but even instructor created videos where you are introducing the content, but you can make it available to your learners prior to those live class meetings so that they have the opportunity to still hear from you, where you are presenting the information to them, explaining what it is that is being covered. Provide even learning guides that they could use while they are watching those videos. Pose questions that they could then answer and use those questions to help drive targeted discussion and practice activities that can happen during those live sessions that may be held online or in a blended experience that can be addressed when you are meeting with your students in the face-to-face classroom.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brooks. We have another question from Dr. Tariq Al-Rimawi. He's asking about, he's thanking you for the insightful presentation and asking about your perspective regarding avatar instructors. Do they impact instructor presence? So if faculty replace themselves in the online space with their avatars, he's asking, can a well-designed avatar foster the same level of social and cognitive presence of a real instructor?
That's a great question. It's definitely a new consideration, especially as this is a tool that is available to us. What I like to share as it relates to instructor presence is thinking about it from our own perspectives. It's fantastic to have an avatar with whom you can interact, or even if it's just receiving information. But we also want to consider something that Moore talks about as it relates to transactional distance. Transactional distance in the online learning space really refers to that feeling of separation that students may experience from themselves and their peers, and especially their instructor. So although an avatar may be a helpful resource that you can use, almost like a teaching assistant in the class, it's still incredibly important to ensure that your learners know who you are as an instructor and they feel your presence as an instructor in the course. Again, AI is meant to supplement and support what we are doing, but it is not meant to replace us.
That's a wonderful perspective. I totally agree with you. We've got a question. I think Dr. Kailani wants to raise his question using the mic. So then if you can, please go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Very good and important session. Although I joined late for technical issue, but I have a question related to when the respected speaker talked about the integration of AI tools in teaching. My question is, do you see it should be held through strategic plan from the institution more or less than initiative by the instructor, the faculty, the teacher?
That's a wonderful question. That's a wonderful question. And I apologize because I am going to let you know I cannot give you a definitive answer. And the reason for that is because each institution is different. Each institution is different. And the process by which technology is permitted to be integrated at an institution really is dependent upon those institutional policies. Yeah. So, for example, I had an opportunity to explore just a little bit more about Qatar University, and I noticed there was information regarding, even just the expectations around engagement in online learning, and that there is an expectation, of course, that any technologies that are incorporated, that they should be discussed with and improved by the institution. And this is very similar to many other institutions. So you always want to, as an instructor, find out what are the policies and regulations that you may be beholden to by your institution, just to understand what you are able to do Or what are the pathways by which you can start incorporating different types of technology? Other institutions, and this is not to say it's better or worse by any means, but it's just different. Other institutions may not have yet decided exactly how they want to go about doing that. So there may be lots of experimentation that is happening by faculty members. But this is another reason why it is incredibly important for institutions to pull together those interdisciplinary teams, to have conversations, and to come up with those institutional expectations for the use of AI and other technology, especially because one of our main responsibilities and one of the institution's main responsibilities is protecting student privacy. And as more tools are being utilized, more software is being brought in, students need to know and institutions need to know, what does this mean for user data and their privacy? And because it is something that would be incorporated by an institution, because it's being utilized in the classroom, ultimately, they are very likely to be held accountable for that. So as much as possible, maintain open lines of communication and dialogue with your institution. And if there are those task forces, as it relates to AI at the institution, take part in them, join them so that you can be part of that conversation, especially if you are one of those early adopters and enthusiasts of AI.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brooks. I apologize for not taking more questions because we are now about 15 minutes over time. I'm just being cautious of people's other commitments. So I think it's time to conclude this session, this wonderful session. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Brooks, for your insightful and informative session. We truly appreciate your time and expertise and the thoughtful perspectives that you have shared with us today. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for being part of this important conversation. Your participation and questions are what make these sessions meaningful. This is our first webinar, so I apologize if there are some technical hiccups or things that did not run smoothly, but we assure you that the coming webinars will be much better, and we'll try to stick to the time. And yeah, as we continue to plan the upcoming sessions, we'd love to hear from you. If there are specific topics or challenges you'd like us to explore in future webinars, please let us know. Either, let us know. I've shared a link to a survey. It's just one question. Open-ended question, what topics or challenges you'd like us to focus on these webinars? So we would appreciate your feedback. And as I said earlier, there will be more of these webinars in the coming semesters. So stay tuned, and we hope to see you again soon. Until then, take care and goodbye for now.